On this episode of A Soul's Quest podcast, Omar and I will discuss the dangers of ruminating and how it can be life-changing to be aware of this negative cycle of thinking. Stay tuned.
All right, so ruminating, huh? We're here to talk about rumination.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's kind of like a plague on the mind, right?
I mean, it's not fun.
Oh, no, definitely not fun.
Mm-mm. Not at all, actually.
Mm-hmm.
It's if you're aware of it.
Well, yeah, but also if you're not aware of it, it happens anyways.
No, I know, but you don't realize that. If you don't realize what it is, then you don't know what the plague is coming from or where it's coming from.
And where to stop it.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's why we're here.
And that's why we're here.
That was actually really good.
That was pretty good.
Yeah. So I have a good quote, actually, because we start all our episodes with a quote, but I have a good quote that actually aligns with what we just said. So this is by Socrates.
Yeah.
So he was right when he said, the unexamined life is not worth living.
Mm-hmm.
However, that was his quote. But I say that the overly examined life isn't so great either.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we should start by, because a lot of people, I actually talked about this with some friends and they were like, what is that?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think a lot of people know what rumination is or ruminating is. So ruminating is a cycle of negative thinking at length about things in life that we often do not have control over. It's an obsessive behavior with negative consequences that affect our mental and psychological well-being. Mm-hmm. It's important to be clear that there is a difference between worrying about a problem and dwelling on the past or about a problem, which is called ruminating.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, ruminating is not necessarily just worrying about something, but that constant cycle of thinking about something that you just really don't have a lot of control over.
Correct, yeah.
And I think a lot of us are guilty of doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a plague. I mean, first, let me go back to that quote, right? Because I remember taking a class on philosophy from Virginia University, the Intro to Philosophy or what have you. And one of the things about that quote, you know, an unexamined life is not worth living, right? But it's also to kind of like point out that an unexamined life is not to be lived.
Right.
Right. Because we do have to examine our lives, right? We have to examine the reasons why our lives are placed in the world and all that stuff. Now, when we focus too much, and this is the thing that causes a rumination, is when we focus too much on the past, right? On the things that have happened to us, either it will be a failure, either it will be a certain trauma, either it will be a loss of someone. Those type of things are the things that if we keep not accepting or moving on from, they plague us at night, you know.
At night.
Mm-hmm.
I think they plague us at all hours of the day, but I think for some people it can keep you up at night for sure.
For me, in my experience of dealing with this stuff, it's like it just keeps me up at night. I mean, there's days sometimes that I've gotten up in the middle of the night and within almost like in a state of panic, because this stuff keeps me up and the brain just keeps going and going and going and going, and it's nothing. It's almost like a runaway train in which you can't stop.
Yeah,
you know, and it's heavy.
Mm-hmm.
It's extremely heavy. You know, it's a heavy feeling to carry that. You know.
Yeah, it's that feeling of like, if I could just control this, or if I could have just did this differently, or if I had acted this way or said this or did that, then things would have turned out different. You know what I mean? And so it's that, you know, hindsight is 20/20, but that cycle of negative thinking about it, because I think that it's healthy to examine things that you could have done better so that you can be give yourself criticism,
to improve,
to become a better person for self-development purposes. But it's very unhealthy to continue to revisit whatever situation it is and then try to figure out 100,000 ways that you could have addressed it differently when there's nothing that you can do, especially about the past, because what's happened has happened.
Yeah.
And that I think is an affliction that a lot of people deal with, because they wanted, it would have just, if I would have done this, it would have been this, you know?
Correct. It's like
And
it's like a Monday morning quarterback, right? Like it's easy to analyze a game after the game is played, right?
Of course.
You know, it's easy
The
to
would-haves, could-haves, and should-haves.
exactly what could haves and would haves, should haves.
We just talked about that, right?
But life is a dress. Life is a dress rehearsal. It's like you're going through life, and we are going to make mistakes, and we are going to make choices. And I think that accepting that is one of the ways that we could begin to minimize the effect of ruminating. But it's a runaway train. It's a mental obsession with this issue over and over and again. I personally, speaking with I statements, I have personally dealt with this, and it's plagued me my whole life, in many different things. So I know the impact that it has, both from a standpoint of my well-being, or from a professional and from a personal standpoint. You know that I've experienced the impacts of it all.
There's a lot of because there's a lot of reasons that that rumination comes about, right? What are the causes of rumination? So we talked about the whole Monday morning quarterback, what we could have done to fix it and whatever. But there are ongoing situations too that people deal with in their ruminating with present situations as well. So it's not just the past, it's also the present and in the future, like you're worrying about things that are going to happen. So some of the rumination is attributed to stressful life events, often related to failure, humiliation, loss, or even retaliation. So some of those examples are sort of like a death of a loved one. We lost our pet. And one of the things that I did persistently for a long time, a good month, was think of what could I have done differently? What should I have done different? Should I have taken him to the vet? Should I have, how could Gatsby have died? He was only 7. And I kept going and going and going. And I was really beating myself up about this to the point where I was like in the middle of the night, like thinking about it, exactly what we were just talking about.
And there's a way, like your mind, it's such a powerful thing, right? And that's why you have to be able to put safeguards on it. And you got to be able to watch what you're saying to yourself and about yourself, and what comes in and comes out, because it could be it could run wild, right? So I give you something that happens, because you mentioned a lot of things that happen to individuals, right? But something else that actually causes rumination is that when you start being obsessive about like world events, politics, news things, news cycles and things like that, these things are actually also additional causes of rumination, right? Because what it is information out there that builds a certain targets at your emotions, right?
Yeah.
An emotion of failure is an emotion of feeling shame. It's like you start feeling shame about this, you start feeling shame about that, you start feeling shame about a lot of different things, right? So that emotion, a fear, is another powerful emotion. Hatred, wanting to retaliate against someone that did you wrong.
All definitely,
and you start thinking in your mind, like, ways like, oh man, if I see this person,
I'm gonna get my vengeance.
I'm gonna tell them off. I'm gonna just get my vengeance and all that stuff. And you plant that seed, and your mind just kind of like keeps going, and that devil on your shoulder begins to get a little bigger and saying, and it takes you away. It takes your focus away. It takes your energy away, because then you start concentrating on all that, and everything else that is matter in your life kind of like gets put in the back burner. And
even just being in the now, being present. Like, I think it takes away from that, because you're doing nothing but thinking about other situations, So those are good examples. Political, what's the world coming to? I had a conversation today with a colleague, and was very, very passionate about what he had to say. And it was interesting, because he's not wrong for feeling the way he's feeling, but he was just like, the world's coming to an end. We're so divided, and we got the left and the right, and the Republicans and the Democrats, and this. He was doing exactly that. He watches the news. He gets these dings on his phone for news updates and things like that about things that are going on in the world, shootings, etc., and all the devastation that's happening around us. And so to him, it was it's a call to action. We got to do something. Let's do something. And I was just like, I'm good. Like I respect that perspective.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that I was thinking, the fact that you're thinking about this and the way that you're thinking about this and it's keeping you up is not healthy. This isn't good for you.
And again, I'm not advocating not taking action on certain things that you would like to change. That's not the advocation.
I told him we are advocating. We have a soul's quest.
and the thing is that it's like you see things that need to change, right? And you work on those things that need to change. And you try your best to make those things that need to change. The problem becomes when it becomes so intoxicating and so engrossing that you are actually harming yourself biologically, psychologically, physiologically. You begin to harm yourself. You're not sleeping well. You're taking all these things really a thing. So you have to ask yourself, if I choose this instead of peace, am I going to be a better person overall? Am I going to be able to focus on people? Or am I going to be constantly looking for these polarities and disparities in life and constantly trying to fix without meeting the beauty of it all? There's things in the world.
And I think there are a lot of people who fall victim to that because they want so much to make a change in the world and be advocates and support whatever whatever it is that they're going after. And there's that thin line where you cross into that constant, like obsessive, you know what I mean? Thinking about this and it takes away. We just watched a movie about that the other day, I think, where I don't remember the premise of the movie. Basically, the lady was so obsessed with taking care of this situation. It was the Strangler. She was so obsessed, she ended up divorcing her husband because she was so obsessed with solving these cases about this Boston Strangler that they ended up getting divorced. And so that's ruminating. She was thinking about it.
And again, it's like you're going to bed, you're not getting any rest, you're not getting any sleep, your relationships are crumbling.
Yeah, and those are some of the consequences.
And some of the consequences. And then physiologically, it does take an effect as well. Now, granted, there is an accomplishment at the end of things, but also, there's that negative the negative part in which it is constantly, you can't get it out of your mind.
That's what.
And that's the issue.
That's the issue.
That's the thing, because that the energy that it takes to not get something off your mind affects so many other aspects of your life.
So some of those consequences are the fact that whenever you're involved in that type of thinking, that cycle, that obsessive pattern of thinking about something, it clouds your ability to make good judgment.
Correct.
And to make good sound decisions.
Yes.
It gets us into a bad mood. Oftentimes we become a little bit like, why are you bothering me? When you become obsessive about something, you respond to people in a negative manner.
You're easy to be provoked.
Irritable. Provoked. That's a better word.
Yep,
yeah.
You're easily provoked.
Right. It causes distance between family, friends, colleagues. It decreases productivity.
Yep.
That's another one. So because all of your mental energy is exhausted, which is what you alluded to earlier. Not you alluded, you said it. Which it makes it difficult for you to focus and to concentrate on things. And then it also increases stress and anxiety, which is a whole nother level, because now we're talking about not only is it affecting your psychological well-being, but it's also affecting your physical well-being. And now from there, I'm not a doctor, that kind of doctor, so I can't say what kind of don't roll your eyes. I'm not that kind of doctor. I don't know what kind of effect, but I know that stress causes a lot of health issues. You know what I mean?
But a lot of the underlying issues when it comes to health, it's like, a lot of it has to do with stress, because there are chemicals under stress that are released, that are damaging to our well-being. We're meant to deal with stress in small bursts. Right,
like a fight or flight response.
Exactly, like the fight or flight response.
Actually, Joe Dispenza in that book that I'm reading right now, Change Your Mind, He talks about this.
Yeah, so there's like, you're activating the sympathetic nervous system, but the sympathetic nervous system is not supposed to be activated all the time. It's only in situations of stress
and like spurts,
danger,
right?
and spurs, and then you have to go back to your parasympathetic nervous system, so that way you are rejuvenating and stuff. That's why we sleep. That's why, and then again, sleep is something that is important. And if your sleep is being disrupted,
big time.
Right, by these thoughts, it becomes problematic. I'll give you my personal experience with rumination.
Yeah, let's share an experience. I'll share too. I have a couple.
I had if you listen to this podcast, you already know that I had a kind of like a difficult time leaving my previous job, and and what that led me to was a lot of ruminating thoughts of anger, disappointment, a sense of low self-esteem, a sense of I didn't want to call it victimization, but a sense of I was just kind of like pushed aside, like it happens to a lot of people. So all that stuff, all those things that I unsaid, kept coming up every night. Every night. It's just like, I don't want to think about this stuff. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to relive it. I want to just say, you know what? I quit this place. Let them keep it. Do whatever the hell you guys want. Live your life. Destroy people's lives. But I don't want to think about this anymore. It's in the past. But it's like your mind doesn't work like that. For some of us. So you have to be able to understand it. And it took me a while to do that. But as a consequence of that, I couldn't sleep at night. And I will go weeks getting up, going to sleep, 10:30, 11 o'clock, waking up 1:30, nonstop. And that affected me. And it's still, it affects me, the fact that it's like I'm getting up at 1:30 and I have all these thoughts in my head. And at that time, I wasn't like truly like meditating. I wasn't focusing on my internal well-being, on my internal dialogue and all that stuff. That's why it got me into really looking into this topic, ruminating. I started really looking into the things that were affecting me, because that situation was a catalyst, and the ruminating part, I had to find solutions for it, because I don't want to get up at 1:30 in the morning thinking about all these negative things, think about all the failures in my life, all the things that I could have done differently, the things that I should have done, the things that I could have said, how I could have handled myself. Maybe I shouldn't have spoken as much. Maybe we should have just, like, all these things that the anger of trusting and then being betrayed, and not being able to deal with that. It's all that stuff. It just was constant, not sleeping every moment on the day. So throughout the day, I'm just feeling exhausted and tired, until one day in the middle of the night, I'm waking up and I feel like I'm dying. Like I'm feeling like I'm sweating. I'm going and jumping into the shower because my body temperature is going up and down. I had to go to the doctor. Like I had to get some like okay, is it my breathing? So
this is like an extreme case, so to speak, or a good example of where it could lead, because you actually went to the doctor, and to figure out what was going on.
Correct.
And it was like, okay, finally it was that conclusion.
And physiologically, my I got with the doctor, you got a linebacker's neck, so everything is kind of like compressed. But also, I mean, I've had the same physiologically physique for a long period of time.
Physique.
You like that?
That is hilarious.
Yeah. I was just making fun of me.
Hold on, let's take a minute to get that sink in for a second. I'm so sorry. Wow, I haven't had a funny all day long. I needed this.
Whatever. Yeah, and obviously a funny at my expense.
Always at your expense. It's hilarious.
But anyway, so I have the
keep your day job, okay?
Whatever. So anyway, so I haven't really changed. In fact, I've lost weight because I'm so stressed out, right? But I still had these issues, right? So I had to look at my mentality and the things that were happening in my head, and but those things trigger that, and I had to look at kind of like the sources, but look at it with a different point of view instead of from the point of anger and despair and frustration and all that.
Now, just to say, because that's all valid. And I think that's really a good example to put, to showcase what we're talking about. But what about, because now we're talking about an example of my example. Mine was not necessarily where I needed to go to the doctor and have, whatever that I felt like, I need to get meditation. I need to do this stuff and whatever, which is, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. But mine was more like, so it ranges. It's a very polarized for each individual, what you experience and what you go through for rumination.
It's unique.
It's unique to the individual.
It's unique.
And so for me, I remember very, very vividly, when I was going to do my comprehensive exams, like I was stressing out about that daily, in and out, like to the point where I was like, I don't know. This is it. This is either I'm going to move on and become a doctoral candidate or I'm not. This is going to be it. And I can't let people down. I can't fail Omar. I can't go back and tell people, I failed my comprehensive exams. I mean, I was really, 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 really stressed out about it to the point where I was getting up in the middle of the night to go and work on like, maybe this is what they're going to look for in this, because I didn't know. So it was that wanting to control something that I have no control over. And all I had was the knowledge that I had attained over 3 years, and I was going to have to pour it into writing, a 50, 60, 70 page paper in 10 days. And then I got sick with COVID for the first one. And so I was super stressed. So I went through the comprehensive exams, wasn't sure how I did. And all I did was think about, I could have done this. I should have wrote that. Oh man. And I just talked to so-and-so and they told me they did this. I didn't even think about that. I could have put that in the strategic plan. I mean, I stressed like constantly, and I didn't find out if I passed my exams for a couple of weeks, which is even worse. Cause everybody, they have to read it. They have to have a second reader, blind readers, etc. And I cannot tell you how it was bothering me. I wasn't eating right. I was gaining weight and then losing weight and then gaining weight and losing weight. I think I was probably drinking a little more wine then. I mean, or maybe not, but I was really stressed out about it. So there's these different, unique experiences that we have, but my hair was falling out. I remember thinking, oh my God, my hair is falling. Like, it was really bad. I wasn't going to the bathroom like appropriately, it was affecting me physiologically, but it wasn't affecting me to the point where I felt like I have to go to the hospital.
But again, it's like things manifest differently in people, right?
But I'm just saying they manifest differently for people, but they manifest in a way that is it is harmful to the individual.
Yeah, well, it is harmful for the individual. It's like I think about also like financial situations, which the uncertainty of finances, the uncertainty of the market. Oh my God, what is going to happen? You go into a transition from one career to another, and these things begin to just run.
I get stressed about going to the supermarket just to look for eggs. Are there going to be any eggs? Are we going to have any eggs?
Jesus Christ.
We just got all kinds of funnies in this episode.
You got funnies.
Okay. Anyways. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I get you're right though. Like not knowing what's, because it's such a volatile time. And I think it's always been like that,
Well, but again, it's understanding that life changes and life has obstacles and life happens, right? But you can't always live in that fight, in that stressed zone, in that area in which your mind it's running wild. And without really using your logic. This is what's important about understanding the logical aspect of your mind and the emotional aspect of your mind, right? Because all that ruminating comes from emotions, right? And it affects the logic, right?
Yeah.
And
I would actually say that's just being self-aware.
Correct. And then the idea is that part of being logical, it's been able to actually tell your brain sometimes you need to you need to stop.
Yeah, you need to slow down.
You need to stop.
Yeah.
It's like there's different techniques that I've after gone through this journey of getting rid of all this talk, to use the word change. I'm thinking about something negatively, like, oh my God, I'm thinking about, my God, I wish I had this much money at this particular time. Change.
Right.
Or stop. Right?
Yeah, like self-talk.
Yeah, I like self-talk.
Telling yourself. Yeah.
Because I have to be able to talk to myself in a way that is like, how is this beneficial for me, or is it detrimental? Obviously, when you wake up in the middle of the night feeling that you're going to die and you're having this panic attack for no particular physiological reason, then it's your mind. And that's how vivid it became for me. Because there was there are some physiological things that I do have to address, but not to get to that point. And that's the power of the mind. And and being how the older I am and doing this, you tend to take for granted how powerful your mind truly really is. Yeah. And you have to be able to safeguard it. In both the
positive and negative.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's important, because we all have the capacity to stop this cycle of negative thinking, right? Or cycle of constant thinking, repetitive thinking.
Yes.
And we also have the power to bring it on, which is really incredible.
And on the personal way, like one of the few remedies that I've found, right? Number one, it's really that self-talk, right?
So this is perfect, because you're leading into some of our techniques that we have to offer. And that's...
and we'll summarize those techniques, right? Just to kind of like put it in as succinct. But like the positive self-talk, meditation. And I know that some people are like, wow, the meditation, this and that and the other. And I was reading something today, right, about the looking at a video actually regarding the fact that if you meditate for 18 minutes a day for one whole year, that's about 100 hours. And if you do something for at least 100 hours, a discipline for at least 100 hours, you're going to become much, much better than 95% of the people or who that do that practice. And the idea is that you got to create some habits in order to mitigate the parts of your life that are affecting you. To me, the meditation has helped me a whole lot. Journaling has helped me a whole lot. Reading certain things that are more uplifting they've helped me kind of like overcome these hurdles. Now I still get up earlier. But I don't get up because my mind is running. I get up because I'm done sleeping, which is different, because that's just a different thing. And those are the consequences that I personally was able to transform and deal with that particular thing. Yeah. What happened?
No, nothing. I was just thinking, like, what do I have? Because I don't necessarily meditate. I do journal a lot, and I think that does help me. One of the things that I would say is that I do know how powerful my mind can be, and I do catch myself. I know when I was doing the comprehensive, there was many times that I wrote a lot in my journal. And I would write things like, you're being unreasonable. Don't think negatively. Don't compare yourself to your classmates. You are who you are.
Correct.
And you wrote what you wrote, and they're going to see your substance based on that. And that's okay. This isn't the end of the world. I did all of those things. And most of it was really, I think for me, journaling is sort of a meditative process, because what happens is I take everything that's in my head and I'm just letting it go and putting it on paper. And then I close it or just mark it, another page for me to write in for the next time that I'm going to visit my journal. And that's been really, really a good thing for me. I've been journaling for a couple of years, and I've been more consistent as I've gotten older, and that's been really helpful for me personally. Yeah. Also, I think it's really helpful for me whenever I do things like I just go outside, wherever I'm at, go outside and take a deep breath in and just let it out. and do that a couple of times. So that's sort of a meditative practice, if you will, or at least a technique, mindfulness. Yeah. Because I'm aware that I'm doing it because I feel it in my shoulders. Sometimes I'll feel like my blood pressure is getting high. It's crazy. As you get older, you feel your blood pressure, you feel it getting higher. And those are all things that lead to physiological damage if you're not aware of it. And so you have to be able to stop those things.
Yeah, if you do those things, if you are aware of your breathing and all that stuff and you work on that, there are benefits for it, right? So, and again, it's like I love the idea of journaling because you're giving these thoughts and this idea the space so that way you eventually could just let them go. And then move forward into something else. So
I think that's really important. You got to be able to acknowledge that these things are happening because you're human. You know what I mean? And I think that's also a part of the process, of overcoming this whole thing. So, So to wrap up, we talked about a lot of things, which is really great, but we're going to offer 5 techniques for how people can overcome ruminating. So the first one is, of course, mindfulness practices, which is, again, focusing on the present moment without passing judgment, which is a component of mindfulness techniques. This can be accomplished by engaging in deep breathing exercises, which is what I talked about, meditation, or even being aware of your surroundings. You can become more conscious of your thoughts and feelings by practicing mindfulness. It can also help you see when you are ruminating. Practicing mindfulness allows you to let go of unfavorable ideas and concentrate on the present, being in the now.
Yeah. The second one, which actually, as part of my dealing with rumination, was trying some cognitive behavioral therapy. So some CBT, which aims to alter unhelpful thoughts and behavior patterns. This can be especially useful for ending the loop of ruminating because it can assist you in reframing your negative thoughts and putting your attention into more fruitful results.
Definitely.
Yep.
3 is physical exercise. And so many people would agree with us, but so many people hate exercise. But exercise has been demonstrated to be useful in easing anxiety and depressive symptoms. Endorphins are released when you exercise, elevating your mood and lowering tension. In addition to it enhances sleep. That's no wonder you keep saying you got to exercise. Regular exercise can also benefit your mental health. Exercise can help you focus your energies on something positive, which can help you break from the pattern of rumination.
Correct. Yeah. Seeking support from friends and family, and a shameless plug, a life coach.
That's right. Need a life coach.
Yeah.
Right here.
So it can be beneficial to receive support from friends and family when trying to stop ruminating. You can obtain perspective on your thoughts and feelings and reduce your sense of isolation by talking to a trusted confidant. Having someone to constantly remind you of your virtues and achievements can also be beneficial.
And finally, seeking professional help. Again, the plug, life coach. So to break the pattern of ruminating, it can be helpful to seek professional assistance. It can either be in the form of a life coach or a therapist. Correct, in some cases. So together with a mental health expert, you can create like a plan to overcome the ruminating process that involves counseling, medication. It can involve a couple of things for some, depending on the severity.
Correct.
But so those are the 5 techniques for overcoming ruminating.
Awesome. Yeah. This was a cool episode.
I think this is important for people today.
I hope people take advantage of it and create their own practice to overcome it.
Definitely. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Comment below with your thoughts and ideas, and remember to stay connected by sharing and subscribing.